Most people are taught one financial rule: avoid debt at all costs. But that advice is incomplete, because debt has created two completely different outcomes. One person borrows $100,000 and uses it to buy things that lose value. A few years later, they have fewer assets and more monthly payments. Another person borrows the exact same $100,000. But years later, they own an asset that produces income. Same debt, same amount of money, completely different result. So what separates them? It comes down to one number: the spread, the difference between what borrowed money costs and what that money produces. Think of debt as rented money. When you borrow money, you are renting someone else's capital. And just like any rental, there is a price. That price is interest. The equation is simple. Spread equals investment return minus the cost of debt. For example, imagine you borrow $100,000 at a 6% interest rate. Your yearly cost is $6,000. But you use that money to buy an asset generating a 10% return. That asset creates $10,000. Your spread is the difference. 10% minus 6%. A positive 4% spread. That gap is where wealth can be created. But if the numbers are reversed, if your debt costs 10% and your investment only earns 5%, you are losing money every year. The math does not care about your intentions. This is the mindset difference. Most people ask, how much debt do I have? Wealth builders ask, is this debt creating more value than it costs? Now let's look at how professionals use this idea. The first example is business credit. Large companies rarely use only their own money. A company might receive inventory from suppliers, sell those products to customers, collect the revenue, and pay suppliers afterward. Why? Because they are temporarily using someone else's capital. If the company earns more from selling those products than the cost of that credit, the spread creates profit. This is one reason successful businesses can grow faster. They are not only using their own money, they are using capital efficiently. But this strategy requires discipline. Poor cash flow management can turn useful debt into a dangerous problem. The second example is real estate. Most people look at a house and see a monthly payment. Investors see an asset. Imagine someone buys a rental property. The property generates rent every month. Over time, the property may increase in value. The owner builds equity. Later, they may refinance the property and use some of that equity to purchase another income-producing asset. This is one way experienced investors scale. But remember, you probably cannot start here. Banks do not give millions of dollars simply because someone has a good idea. They look at income, credit history, assets, and risk. The third example is a strategy called buy, borrow, die. Some extremely wealthy individuals use this approach. Instead of selling valuable assets and creating taxable income, they borrow against those assets. Why? Because a loan is not considered income. They can access cash while still keeping ownership of their investments. However, this is not a beginner strategy. It requires significant assets, strong financial planning, and professional management. The strategy works because the foundation was built first. The lesson is simple. The wealthy do not start with advanced strategies. They build the financial foundation that allows them to use those strat. Now, this is where many people misunderstand debt. Debt is not automatically good, and debt is not automatically bad. Debt is a tool, but every tool has risks. Leverage can increase your results, but it can also increase your losses. There are three major risks you need to understand. The first risk is negative spread. This happens when your investment earns less than your debt costs. For example, if you borrow money at 8% interest, but your investment only returns 4%, you are losing money every year. The second risk is cash flow problems. An asset can look valuable on paper, but if you cannot make your payments, you can still lose everything. Many people fail because they run out of cash before their investment has time to grow. The third risk is over-leverage. Borrowing too much creates a fragile financial system. A small change in the market can create a major problem. Professionals don't ask, how much money can I borrow? They ask, how much risk can I survive? So how can regular people apply this idea? Not by copying billionaires. By understanding the principle. Start with smaller versions. Instead of borrowing money to buy things that lose value, use money to increase your future earning power. Learn a valuable skill. Invest in education. Buy tools that help you earn more. The question is always, will this money create more value than it costs? That is the same thinking used by successful investors and business owners. They focus on creating assets. They focus on increasing their income. And they focus on making sure their money works harder than the cost of using it. Another example is credit cards. Some people use credit cards as expensive debt. They spend money they don't have, carry balances, and pay high interest every month. But others use credit cards as financial tools. They pay on time, build their credit score, earn rewards, and avoid unnecessary interest. The difference is not the credit card. The difference is the system behind it. One of the most accessible financial levers almost everyone can improve is your credit score. Because your credit score affects the cost of borrowing money. Someone with excellent credit may qualify for lower interest rates. Someone with poor credit may pay much more for the same loan. Same amount borrowed, different cost, different spread. Building credit is not about borrowing more money. It is about making money cheaper when you actually need it. The wealthy understand something most people miss. Money itself is not the only factor. The cost of money matters. A person who understands interest rates, leverage, and cash flow has an advantage over someone who only focuses on earning more. Because making more money is only one part of wealth. Keeping it, growing it, and using it efficiently is what creates long-term financial success. The entire concept comes down to one equation. Spread equals return on money minus cost of money. A positive spread can help build assets. A negative spread can slowly destroy wealth. Debt itself is not the enemy. Using debt without understanding the math is. This is pocket wisdom, where we break down the ideas, strategies, and mathematics behind how money actually works. Subscribe for more financial lessons explained through logic, numbers, and simple breakdowns. Because understanding the math changes the way you see money.